Cowboys Nation, hold up because this changes absolutely everything. A blockbuster trade involving Maxx Crosby and the Dallas Cowboys was reportedly moments away from happening, and then it all came crashing down in the most dramatic fashion possible. If you care about this team's future, if you want to know what Jerry Jones is really planning behind closed doors, you need to hear every single word of this. Make sure you smash that subscribe button right now and turn on those notifications because we are bringing you daily Cowboys updates, and trust me, you do not want to miss what is coming next. All right, Cowboys fans, let me paint the picture of what just went down, because this situation has been an absolute roller coaster over the past 24 hours. We are talking about Maxx Crosby, one of the most dominant defensive ends in the entire National Football League, a player who has terrorized quarterbacks and offensive linemen alike for years now, and for a brief, glorious moment, it looked like he was about to become a Dallas Cowboy. The betting line shifted. The rumors started flying. Social media was absolutely exploding with excitement. Cowboys fans everywhere were already picturing Crosby and that iconic star on his helmet, imagining him wreaking havoc on NFC East quarterbacks twice a year. And then, just like that, the dream appeared to shatter into a million pieces. Now, before we dive deeper into what happened and what this means going forward, let me give you some background on why Maxx Crosby is such a coveted player and why every single team in this league would love to have him on their roster. Maxx Crosby was drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders back in 2019 as a fourth-round pick out of Eastern Michigan. Fourth round. Let that sink in for a moment. This guy was not some highly touted prospect that everyone was fighting over on draft day. He flew under the radar, and he has spent every single season since then making every team that passed on him regret that decision deeply. They call him the Condor for a reason, and that reason is his absolutely ridiculous wingspan and his relentless motor that never stops. This man does not take plays off. He is in the backfield constantly, disrupting plays, creating chaos, and making life miserable for opposing offenses. Over the past few seasons, Crosby has established himself as arguably the best pure pass rusher in the entire league. We are talking about a guy who has racked up double-digit sacks multiple times, who consistently grades out as one of the top defensive players in football, and who brings an intensity and leadership that transforms an entire defense. He is the kind of player that changes games single-handedly. He is the kind of player that offensive coordinators have to scheme around. And most importantly for a team like Dallas, he is exactly the kind of difference maker that this defense has been desperately searching for. So, when reports started circulating that the Cowboys were in serious discussions to acquire Maxx Crosby, you can understand why the fan base went absolutely crazy. The Dallas Cowboys have not had a truly elite, game-wrecking pass rusher since the days of DeMarcus Ware. Think about that for a second. We are talking about years and years of searching for that guy, that one player who can take over a game from the defensive side of the ball. Micah Parsons has been incredible, absolutely incredible, but imagine pairing him with Maxx Crosby. Can you even picture that? Two of the most dominant pass rushers in football, both wearing the star, both hunting quarterbacks on every single snap. It would have been absolutely terrifying for opposing offenses. According to multiple reports that came out, the Cowboys genuinely believed they were close to finalizing a deal for Maxx Crosby. Like, we are not talking about casual discussions here. We are talking about a situation where the front office thought they were on the verge of pulling off one of the biggest trades in recent franchise history. Trey Wingo reported that the Cowboys thought they had this thing wrapped up last night. They were apparently feeling confident that Maxx Crosby was about to become a Dallas Cowboy. And then everything changed. Other teams saw what was happening and decided they were not going to let Dallas walk away with this prize without a fight. Multiple franchises reportedly jumped into the bidding war and started offering packages that included multiple first-round picks. When that happened, the price skyrocketed beyond what the Cowboys were willing to pay, and Dallas made the decision to back out of the negotiations. Now, here is where things get really interesting and where we need to have an honest conversation about what this means for the Cowboys moving forward. The Cowboys currently hold the 12th and 20th overall picks in this year's draft. Those are two premium selections in what is widely considered to be one of the deepest defensive drafts we have seen in years. When teams started offering multiple first-round picks for Crosby, the Raiders suddenly had significant leverage, and they were not about to let him go for anything less than a king's ransom. Jane Slater, one of the most connected reporters when it comes to Cowboys news, provided some crucial insight into the team's thinking. According to her team sources, While the Raiders were talking to multiple teams about Crosby, the Cowboys made it clear that they were not willing to give up 2 first-round picks. That was their line in the sand. They would go high, they would be aggressive, but sacrificing both premium picks was simply not something they were prepared to do. And honestly, Cowboys fans, I think we need to really think about whether that was the right call, because this is not as simple as it might seem on the surface. On one hand, you have Maxx Crosby, a proven elite player who would immediately transform this defense. You know exactly what you are getting with him. There is no guesswork, no developmental time needed, no questions about whether he can play at the highest level. He has already done it year after year. But on the other hand, there are some legitimate concerns that the front office clearly took into consideration. First and foremost, the Cowboys are not one player away from a championship. That is just the reality of the situation. This team has holes that need to be filled at multiple positions. They need help on the offensive line. They need depth in the secondary. They have questions at several key spots throughout the roster. If you trade away both of your first-round picks for one player, no matter how good that player is, you are severely limiting your ability to address all of those other needs. Jerry Jones himself has been very open about the fact that whoever the Cowboys select in this draft is going to be expected to contribute immediately. There is no redshirt program in Dallas this year. These rookies are going to be counted on from day one. So when you think about it that way, giving up both the 12th and 20th picks means losing 2 players who could potentially start and make an impact right away. That is a significant sacrifice, especially for a team that has so many areas that need improvement. Then there is the financial aspect of this whole situation. Maxx Crosby is not cheap. He has a massive contract, and bringing him to Dallas would eat up a significant chunk of salary cap space. In a league where roster construction and cap management are absolutely critical, tying up that much money in one player while also giving away your top draft assets is a risky proposition. The Cowboys would essentially be betting the entire franchise's future on Maxx Crosby being the missing piece that gets them over the hump. And let us talk about the injury factor for a moment, because this is something that cannot be ignored. Crosby dealt with an ankle injury in 2024 and has been dealing with a knee issue in 2025. He is 29 years old, which means he is entering the phase of his career where wear and tear starts to become a real concern for any player, especially one who plays with the intensity and violence that Crosby brings every single snap. When you are trading multiple first-round picks and taking on a huge contract, you need that player to be healthy and productive for years to come. Any questions about durability have to factor into that decision. Now let us talk about what happens next, because the Cowboys are clearly not just going to sit back and do nothing. According to reports, the team is now pivoting their attention toward Trey Hendrickson as a potential target. For those who might not be as familiar with Hendrickson, let me tell you, this is still an elite pass rusher we are talking about. Hendrickson has been one of the most productive edge rushers in football over the past several seasons. He has consistently put up big sack numbers and has proven that he can be a game wrecker in his own right. The advantage of pursuing Hendrickson is that he likely would not cost as much in terms of draft capital. You might be able to acquire him without giving up both of those first-round picks, which would allow the Cowboys to still address other needs through the draft while also adding a premium pass rusher. It is the kind of smart, calculated move that allows you to improve the team at multiple positions rather than going all in on one player. Adam Schefter discussed the Maxx Crosby situation on the Pat McAfee show and provided some fascinating insight into how many teams are involved in this pursuit. According to Schefter, the Bears have checked in on Crosby, the Cowboys have checked in, and the Bills have checked in. He described the situation as a simmering volcano that could erupt at any moment. The Raiders have multiple suitors, and they are going to play these teams against each other to get the absolute maximum return for their superstar pass rusher. What is interesting about the Bills' involvement is that their recent trade for DJ Moore might actually take them out of the Crosby sweepstakes. When you make a move like that, you are using up assets and taking on salary, which limits your flexibility to make another blockbuster move. Schefter pointed out that while teams always find ways to make things happen, the DJ Moore trade probably lessens the chances that Buffalo can put together a competitive package for Crosby. That could be good news for Dallas if they decide to get back into the bidding, but it also means teams like Chicago might become even more aggressive. The Bears clearing cap space through recent moves has put them in a position to potentially make a major push for Crosby. If Chicago offers multiple first-round picks and can absorb his contract, that is going to be tough for the Cowboys to compete with unless they are willing to match or exceed that offer. This is the challenge Dallas is facing right now. They want to be aggressive, but they also want to be smart about it. Cowboys fans on social media have been absolutely torn about how to feel about this whole situation. Some fans are devastated that the team walked away from a chance to add Maxx Crosby. They look at it as the front office being cheap or not willing to do what it takes to win a championship. These fans point out that draft picks are never guaranteed, and when you have a chance to get a proven superstar, you have to pull the trigger. But there is another significant portion of the fan base that actually supports the decision to back out. These fans argue that the Cowboys made the smart, disciplined choice by not overpaying for one player. They point to the depth of this draft class on the defensive side of the ball and argue that the Cowboys could potentially come away with two difference makers at picks 12 and 20. Names like Travis Hunter, if he were to somehow fall, or other top defensive prospects have been mentioned as players who could immediately contribute at a high level. Some analysts have been posing an interesting question to really put this decision into perspective. If you had to choose between Maxx Crosby and a combination of two top defensive players you could draft at 12 and 20, which would you take? It is not an easy question to answer. You are essentially choosing between a sure thing with some injury concerns and age considerations versus the unknown but potentially unlimited ceiling of young players on rookie contracts. There is also the philosophical question of how the Cowboys should be building their team. Do they go all in for a short championship window with moves like trading for Crosby, or do they take a more sustainable approach that builds through the draft and creates long-term success? Jerry Jones is 82 years old and has made it clear he wants to win another Super Bowl. That urgency is real, and it factors into every decision the front office makes. But Stephen Jones and the rest of the personnel department also have to think about what happens in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the line. The truth is that this decision is going to be judged based on what happens next. If the Cowboys use those picks on players who become stars, everyone will say they made the right call walking away from Crosby. But if those picks do not pan out and Crosby goes somewhere else and helps that team win a championship, Cowboys fans will be haunted by what could have been for years to come. That is the nature of the NFL. Every decision carries weight, and you do not get to see the alternate timeline where you made the other choice. What I find fascinating about this whole situation is that it shows the Cowboys are genuinely trying to be aggressive this offseason. For years, fans have complained that Jerry Jones talks a big game, but does not actually make the moves necessary to compete for a championship. But here, we have evidence that the Cowboys were right there, ready to make a blockbuster trade for one of the best defensive players in football. They were not just kicking tires. They were actively negotiating and believed they were close to getting a deal done. The fact that they ultimately walked away when the price got too high actually shows discipline, which is something this franchise has not always demonstrated in the past. It would have been easy to get caught up in the moment, to let emotions take over and just outbid everyone else. But the front office took a step back, evaluated what they would be giving up versus what they would be getting, and made a calculated decision that they could build a better team by keeping those picks and potentially pursuing other options. Now the question becomes what those other options look like. Trey Hendrickson is one name that has been mentioned, but there are other quality pass rushers who could become available in free agency or via trade. Jalen Phillips is another name that has been floating around. The Cowboys have options, and they have the draft capital and cap space to be players for multiple difference makers rather than putting all their eggs in one basket. The coming days and weeks are going to be absolutely crucial for the direction of this franchise. Free agency is approaching, the trade market is heating up, and the draft is on the horizon. Every move the Cowboys make is going to be scrutinized and analyzed to the maximum degree. Cowboys Nation expects results, and the pressure on the front office to deliver has never been higher. As we wrap this up, I want to hear from you in the comments section below. Do you think the Cowboys made the right call by walking away from Maxx Crosby when the price tag hit 2 first-round picks? Or do you think they should have done whatever it takes to bring in an elite pass rusher who could transform this defense immediately? What would you do if you were in charge of the Cowboys front office right now? There are legitimate arguments on both sides of this debate, and I genuinely want to know what the fan base is thinking. This Maxx Crosby saga might not be completely over. Things change quickly in the NFL, and if other deals fall through or the Raiders lower their asking price, Dallas could potentially get back in the mix. But as of right now, it looks like the Cowboys are moving in a different direction, and we will have to wait and see how that direction ultimately plays out. Cowboys fans, Stay locked in because this offseason is far from over and there are bound to be more twists and turns ahead. Make sure you are subscribed to this channel with notifications on so you do not miss any breaking news or analysis. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it, share it with your fellow Cowboys fans, and let us keep this conversation going in the comments. Until next time, this is your home for everything Dallas Cowboys, DC4L, and we will catch you in the next one.